Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Peteman Reviews. Today we have the ToyWorld release Infinitor. ToyWorld is basically the third party release of various Transformers, and Infinitor is the third party redesign of Fortress Maximus. Now the original Generation 1 Fortress Maximus was huge, only surpassed recently by the Titan version of Metroplex. Something like 2 foot tall, which is just crazy size. Unfortunately, while it was huge, it was also very blocky, plasticky, and didn't have... It had detail, but it didn't have massive amounts. The ToyWorld version tries to remedy this somewhat, and give you a much more scalable figure with an awful lot of detail, which they have done successfully. However, as you can see just by me trying to flick up this cannon, they've also made it pretty difficult to transform. Which is the negative side of it. While I struggle to flick this cannon up, see, this is the thing. This is not the only piece that's like that. So this is Fortress Maximus in base mode 1. He comes with 2 different base modes, plus the transport mode, plus the robot mode. So it makes effectively a quadruple changer. You also get Spike. Here we go. Or Cerebros, depending on how you wish to look at it. What they've done, ToyWorld, is basically they've said, as most of the comics have done, it has to be said, is they've eliminated the fact that you need Cerebros to form the head of Fortress Maximus. They've said, let's just make him a straight-on headmaster. So it's just Spike which forms the head of Fortress Maximus. And so that's exactly what's happened in the comics most of the time. And actually, when you look at the comics, the vast majority of the time what they've done is they've scaled down both Fortress Maximus and Scorponok, so they're more the same height. People like Power Master Prime and Galvatron. So actually this is no different to what the comics have done. So we'll just look at Spike first. Incredibly detailed headmaster. A little bit dark. Let's see if we can help that a little bit. Not a blind bit of difference, but hey, never mind. Okay, so that's Spike. Very detailed. The articulation, I've never seen it before on any kind of Nebulon. I know he's not a Nebulon, he's a human, but the thought's the same. You know, he's a fully articulated figure. It kind of looks like he's dancing, which wasn't what the intention was when I did the pose, but hey, never mind. The fact that he can just gives you some idea of the level of movement on there. And obviously on the back he has Fortress Maximus, his head. Spike can sit on here. He does have a little command centre here, which he can sit in as well, like so, to command it. We're not going to put him in there for the moment. So this is one of the base modes. As you can see, it's a little bit, not everything sits entirely flat. That might be my fault rather than Toy's fault. It's just extremely difficult to actually work out the instructions telling you. They're done on the classic ToyWorld model, which is, look, we've highlighted a red bit, it's relatively clear what we're going to tell you to do, and then suddenly we start moving things around in a different version. So a lot of it you do have to kind of figure out almost yourself, and from memory as well, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, it just takes time. Okay, so that's base mode 1. It's basically is the classic city mode that you often get, with the idea you should have a little ramp here, a little ramp here, a little ramp there, guns. It actually works quite well in terms of scale of the Micromasters. So that's, I'm sure that wasn't the intention, maybe it was, but it kind of, it's a little bit too small for the Micromasters, but they will happily run up and down on it. But as I say, it's almost a little bit too small. It's ideal scale for humans, but it replicates the old city mode, so it's quite a nice thing to see. That's obviously the main gun for Fortress Maximus. And if we just zoom in here, you've got, you know, nice details here. You can see this goes up and down. You've got the gun work is particularly good details. You've got hatches which open. You've got chrome parts like this. This even opens as well, so you won't need it for this mode, but it does open, and you see there is the indentation, or you might not be able to see the indentation of the pilot seat. This opens as well, so you could have another one in there. You've got more weapons here. It just goes on. It's a really high level of detail on there, considering it's not a small toy, not by any means, but you consider what they've done in there to get it to look even vaguely the same detail as the original Fortress Maximus is pretty impressive. Okay, we are going to attempt to put him in some other modes. It might take a little while, so bear with me for it. So what I want to do is put him into, they call it base mode 2, where the idea is these legs here will end up, with his legs like this, but what we're going to end up with is it stands up. So how that works is it's all about turning things around. So as you can see, these are probably not going to be the world's greatest instructions around, because it's quite a difficult thing to go, but that's kind of what we're aiming for. Annoyingly, we're going to be stuck with this hinge out here, but we'll come on to that in a second, because I think that's a pretty easy solution. So what I'm doing is, I'll talk you through it, is we're trying to get it, as we've got this side, so the foot here, ignore that for a second, the foot here ends up level with this foot. So we need to rotate all these round. Luckily there's so many ratchet joints here, it's relatively easy to do. So now we've got the leg like this ratchets up, this then rotates again, and then you rotate it just down. I suppose they're not actually the same height. Oh, I see why. You have to rotate the leg round so that they're so big, some of these, that everything kind of gets in the way. So you see the silver parts here, they need to be level. That way, when you ratchet this up, it's all on the same level. Now these dupe panels here which are sticking out, they don't, because there's a slight recess there, so they will slot in. It's a bit of a tight fit, but they will slot in to get out of the way. It's an incredibly tight fit, but they do go in. Okay, so we're almost there actually. This does go down to produce. It's almost another foot, but that does go down. This stays out of the way here. I'm just going to put this gun back up. It's now useless. This red thing, it does pop out. This is probably the. Can you just see that red thing? That does pop out to make another ramp. It's probably one of the more difficult ones to pop out. I think it's because there's no real place to get a proper leverage on it. So, in this situation, we're going to get a trusty needle and see if we can lever it out. This is to get him into base mode 2. So don't worry, once we've done this, we will transform him into the more common version you see of Fortress Maximus. There we go. Where he's in his transport mode, and also into the robot mode. So this is base mode 2. As you can see, it is pretty identical to base mode 1, in terms of the front at least. And what you've got at the back is you've got all these rear things. You then have more weapons here, which I'll just bring it around and show you. More weapons here which can come into play, and you can never get these guns to come out. You could, in theory, probably have them pointing out that way. So base mode 2 is slightly more compact, slightly more, probably less of a battle focus, if I'm absolutely honest. But just it's slightly more compact mode of the other base. Nevertheless, it looks pretty good, I have to say. I quite like that one. I haven't done that one too often. It's normally, again, it's probably the least common of the Fortress Maximus modes. It's quite a good mode. Not the easiest to transform into, as I ably showed, but never mind. Okay, so now let's get him into his traditional, somewhat, transport mode. So the feet become the front of the craft. It's almost spaceship mode, I guess you could call it. Now, how do we do this? So we need to start off by rotating this way, because this joint goes up and down. So now by having it go this way, you see, it quite happily will produce a joint that goes that way. I have to say, this feels a bit odd on this side, but it's okay, because everything, well, it's not okay, because you are left with it that way. Like I say, it's okay, because you can rotate it round, but of course, you can't, or can you? Because if we rotate the leg, no, that's not going to work, is it? Okay, let's sort out this leg and then worry about that. Seems like the best bit, otherwise we're going to be here forever with me fumbling in the dark and you getting bored. So get this out of the way, get that down like that, rotate this up. Okay, and yeah, I see the problem here. They do definitely need to be the other way round. Because that is how it should be, yes. I just need to put this gun out of the way there. So that's the front, the correct front. I see once again I've managed to get the legs not quite right. Now interestingly, the legs do have a little thing here. What does that do? Nothing. It's yet another bit where you do wonder what it's there for. Maybe it does do something, but damned if I know. I'm sorry if that's that doesn't help you guys, but it is a really tricky transformation. This guy. What am I trying to do here? I'm trying to get that side, aren't I? It has to be said, this of all the third party toys I've used, this is by far the trickiest. Yeah, I was thinking this is going crazy, but I'm not going crazy because I still need to rotate it at the waist. There we are. So this now looks a little bit more familiar, doesn't it? Just got to get the back sorted, and then we'll be there. The back is pretty simple to get sorted. So this flips up like that. Flips like that. Goes down like that. Here we are. Fortress Maximus is now in his more traditional spaceship mode. Again, we could flip out all the guns if we wanted, but you don't have to. And I have to say, that looks very good. I know it's a bit dubious as to actually be in a spaceship with the huge command centre and or the pilot centre, and then you've got all of these kind of stuff here, so it's a bit dubious that it actually be in a spaceship. However, bear in mind what we've already established in terms of how Fortress Maximus spaceship mode looks. That is very authentic replication for it. There's nothing on there that you look at it going, I don't recall that being there, or is it not missing something? It's flipping hard to transform into, don't get me wrong. And I apologise if I struggle with some of these. They are really complicated transformations, and a lot of the instructions are very much the rotate this, now turn it 180 degrees, now rotate this, now rotate that, at which point you're going, what one have I rotated now? And they aren't the clearest at all. Luckily, because Fortress Maximus is quite a well-known character, you can kind of work it out from memory. And I guess that's some of the beauty of these toys, is the fact that a lot of them are trying to put it into a configuration that makes sense. Not that you would, if you were by yourself and you didn't know who Fortress Maximus was, you would ever have thought that configuration makes sense. I don't know, maybe you would, but as a battleship, it doesn't look anything like a battleship, but we do know that that's how Fortress Maximus looks. Okay, so let's get on to the easiest of mode, and the one we all recognise, which is him in robot mode. So actually, we're not that far off it. Legs go up like that. You need to get this out of the way. First of all, actually, let's just close all these flaps at the back. Down, and this does slot in. You hear lots of clicks and clunks on these toys. They're all very, very tightly fitted. It's a good thing, but it is a real tight fit. So if you're worried about something going snap, odds are it isn't. I'm not saying that they won't go snap, but they are very tightly fitted toys. So this top part comes down, and you can see where the headmaster tab goes, which reassuringly will fit regular headmasters as well. This we get out, so this comes up like that. It will come apart into two. Don't worry if it does that, because that's not a problem. And then it rotates all the way around like this. That rotates all the way up and goes up his back, as it were. It will, again, or it should do, snap into place. These don't snap into place, but they need to go there. Then that comes down, that comes down. So these kind of become the wings on the back, which again, that is exactly, it wasn't that commonly seen in some of the TV series, but it certainly was in the comics, that he had those wings on the back. goes up like that. This is actually a fairly common arrangement where the hands flip into the shell. So that just makes life a little bit easier. The fact that we have some standard thing. That's standard actually now for most of the Hasbro stuff as well. Not always easy to flip out, but they do eventually. He does, if you notice, he's got. I don't think they don't flip out. They look like they should annoyingly. Little red parts on his hands which look like communicators, but they don't. Okay. Just before we put Spike in, I just note that you can still use these compartments if you wished as well in robot mode. So that's a bit reminiscent of, do you remember some of the G1 comics where I believe Buster Witwicky was hidden in one of those? If you had another mini guy, you could actually replicate that scene if you wished. So it's just yet more storage port for him. Okay, so we stop our little guy doing the dancing. Arms go like that. Interestingly, the legs actually rotate. I say interesting, it's not, but it's a surprisingly complex transformation. They do clip together. That flips up like that to produce the head. So it's a surprisingly complex transformation for a headmaster. Come on. It will go in. For some reason it's been a little bit of a pain today. Probably because it knows it's being filmed. There we are. So, very good head on it. And then Fortress Maximus can hold his gun. There he is in robot mode. Very, very good robot mode. It's got lots of articulation. Now the head, of course, has surprisingly high level of articulation. Since this is a headmaster slots in place, you wouldn't expect any movement. So it's got some, so surprisingly high level of articulation. Hands do open. Clasp in joint. They do rotate. Now it doesn't come with a weapon or anything. I could swear that those red things have come out, but they don't. With a sword or anything like he does in Super God Master Force. Is it Master Force? No, it's Headmasters. But he has one in Master Force as well. So he doesn't have a sword or anything, unfortunately. But what he does have as well is these red things on the pouch here flip up with yet more guns. Exactly the same on this side. So yet more guns. So he's not exactly short of firepower. Faith, the guy doesn't need a sword. He's got his cannons that can rotate up like that. He can as well, if we move his arms up and out the way, he's got yet more weapons here that flip out as well. So he's even got shoulder. Sometimes so you do have to move the rabbit. He's even got more guns there under his waist as well. The guy is absolutely loaded with weaponry. It is very much like a Metroplex in that respect, and it's quite good to see. I just remember when he was in Spaceship mode, I forgot to tap his gun. Never mind. He's absolutely tooled up and is a great looking robot. Now, in terms of posability, he's got the good feet on him, by which I mean the ones that go like that, so you can happily have him standing in different poses, and he's not gonna, not gonna topple over. Depends how you stand him, but yeah, he's got that reassuring movement, so you do get some foot that's on the ground. I'd recommend to stand him in, of course, the only pose that is where he's not going to stand up. I'm frustrated. There we go. So you can get him in odd-looking poses, but he does have that manoeuvrability, which I know we kind of have come to expect it with third-party toys, and indeed with modern toys as well. But it's good to see because they don't. Do you remember the Constructicons I did? They don't all have these feet on them. So it's really good when they have that because it just gives that extra stability so that when they are in a slightly funky pose, you're not going to have your guy fall over. Okay, so obviously Fortress Maximus' blackable foe is Scorponok. Now, this is the original G1 release of Scorponok. The guy's head doesn't even appear on screen, so you've kind of gone from one extreme to the other. Whereas before, I'm just going to count the camera up a little bit here. Whereas before, we had Fortress Maximus absolutely tower over Scorponok. Now we have Scorponok towering over Fortress Maximus. Maybe it's a little bit of justice, but it never seems possible to get the two of them in the correct scale, where they're both scalable. But hey, never mind. And of course, what will be complete without showing a Galvatron as well, or a unique toys Galvatron, Mania King. I do that because do you remember at the end of the G1 run you had Galvatron and Fortress Maximus fight each other? They were of a similar height. Now, Fortress Maximus is taller than Galvatron here, but not ludicrously so. I can well believe that, you know. You feel like Fortress Maximus should be a big guy, he is a big guy. Particularly around the shoulders, they are huge and chunky in the chest. Whereas Galvatron is smaller, but that doesn't feel out of place, does it? And just one last thing. Let's take Scorponok's head, Zarak, take Fortress Maximus' head, and will these sit in there? Annoyingly, he will not. That's a bit of a shame. I did think that was going to fit in, because it's not too dissimilar. So you see, that's the hole there, and that's the hole here. But annoyingly, the head of Scorponok is just too large to fit. Will it fit in here? Well, yes, but because the head's a little bit shorter, it bounces out. So you can put Fortress Maximus' head on Scorponok, but you cannot put Scorponok's head on Fortress Maximus. It's just a little bit too large to fit in. I wonder if there's any other headmasters where that will work on. Actually, Scorponok seems to be popping out now, but never mind. So I wonder if there are any other headmasters where I actually haven't got any other headmasters to be able to work this on, and it'd be quite cool if this works on the Titan's Return raids as well, which are of course all headmasters. So, you know, let me know. We'll find out. Okay, I know we seem to have gone through that pretty quickly. Some of the transformation is difficult. I think the best advice I can give on transforming this guy is remember what the character looks like or what the end product is, and you just have to almost do a bit trial and error to fit it in there, because it is one of the more complicated transformations. The instructions are not very helpful, but it's worth it because the detail is excellent. He looks like a powerful guy. He's got so many weapons. Considering, I know he is quite a big toy, but when you consider the amount of detail on there, it's actually quite fiddly, and it feels like they've done a really good job with it. It'll be interesting to see how he compares with the Titan's Return release of Fortress Maximus, and we'll come to that review as soon as possible. Titan's Return is not a cheap toy. This guy's about half the price of the Titan's Return toy. So if you can't afford the Titan's Return, or you want something a bit more to scale with your other Transformers, Infinitor from ToyWorld is definitely worth getting hold of. Even if you weren't interested in Fortress Maximus toy at all, just in terms of the robot and the detailing and the weapons, and the fact that he will interact with your Micromasters, it's worth picking up for that alone. But if you want a headmaster, he's definitely a good place to start, a good place to finish as well. Yeah, I would suggest getting hold of him. He's not too badly priced, considering the amount of detail going in there. He's actually quite reasonably priced, cheaper than a lot of the combiners, third-party combiners in their individuals. So yeah, definitely worth picking hold of. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. Please leave comments below, click and subscribe, and click on the other links, and I'll see you for the next review. Thank you. Goodbye.